Welcome back. So we're diving straight into a submission titled Prominent Figures Deceased in 2025. It's a compilation categorized by field: cinema, music, politics.
Right.
And what I really like about this is the structure. I mean, the attempt to organize all this disparate info: cinema, music, sports, royalty. It gives you an immediate framework.
It does. It's a huge strength. But that very structure, that clarity, it actually shines a spotlight on the first big conflict.
Yeah, it really does. The submission struggles to maintain a cohesive voice, creating a jarring shift between an emotional opening and the clinical list.
The inconsistency is, it's immediate. You start with this really emotional statement in Hebrew. As it suv shi badnu kokach harbe anashim me'as chilat alpayim esrim b'chamesh.
Which is a heavy, a very grief-stricken line.
It sets you up for a memorial. A memorial, exactly, a reflection, but then, boom, that tone is just gone. It's immediately abandoned for this sparse, almost cold, factual list. Gene Hackman, Robert Redford, Ozzy Osbourne.
It's pure tonal whiplash. The writer puts all this emotional weight into the opening, but then that weight just vanishes. It's like you're starting with a poem and ending with an Excel sheet.
And when you do that, you weaken both parts. The list feels cold because you promised warmth, and the emotional intro feels, hollow because the content doesn't back it up.
The reader has no idea what to do.
None. So the suggestion has to be about commitment. Pick a lane.
Right. You have to decide on a unified purpose.
Exactly. Either you lean fully into that reflective, memorial idea, or you commit to being an objective, professional reference guide. You can't really be both.
That's a great point. And objective doesn't have to mean sterile, but you do have a contract with the reader. So if the goal is pure utility, a quick reference, then yes, the fix is simple. You cut the preamble, you make the headings neutral, and it becomes a database. Done.
But the other path, the memorial path, that feels more interesting but harder. How do you actually do that? How do you get emotion into a list?
You do it by transforming the entries from just data points into tiny tributes.
Okay.
If you're going the memorial route, you have to bake that feeling from the first line into every single entry. You're curating a reflection, not just compiling data.
So give me a concrete example. What does that look like?
Okay, so instead of just Roberta Flack music, you add something like the profound depth of a voice, a legacy that redefined soul for generations.
Ah, I see.
Or for David Lynch, you don't just list him, you mention his lasting influence on surrealist cinema, forever warping the boundaries of film. These little phrases, they carry that initial emotion all the way through the piece.
It honors them. It justifies the grief from the first line and pays it off for the reader.
That's it. It makes the whole thing tonally consistent.
And that idea of consistency, that actually leads right into the next big issue, which is also about unclear rules.
It really does, because even with a unified voice, the structure itself has some unexplained choices happening.
The criteria for prominence and categorization granularity are unclear, especially in the inclusion of highly specific subgroups within the broader categories.
Yeah, building on that, what does prominence even mean in the context of this document?
So a key theme running through this material seems to be the inconsistent level of detail. The big categories are fine. Music, sports, royalty, they make sense. But then you suddenly get this very specific category.
Refugees and victims of violence.
Right, and it lists Irina Zaratsky. And that category, it's defined by circumstance, not by a profession like all the others, it feels. Editorially unexplained.
It feels like an outlier, and it's a fascinating one. By isolating that group, the writer is saying something important, but they never actually say what it is. We're left wondering why this one specific, sensitive group gets this special treatment next to, the Duchess of Kent.
Is the writer trying to suggest a different kind of prominence? One that's not about fame, but about impact or circumstance?
That's the question. And if that's the intention, it has to be explicit. Right now, it just feels like there's a hidden logic for one group that doesn't apply to anyone else.
So the fix is to clarify that logic, to be consistent.
Yes, you have to commit. Either you streamline everything to the broadest possible level, like just call everyone public figures, or you have to apply that same deep, granular logic to all the other categories.
So the problem isn't the refugees category itself. The problem is that it's the only one like it.
Exact. It's a structural exception. It's like, imagine a library. Either you sort all the books by a really detailed system, or you just put them all on the nonfiction shelf. You can't have one book with its own hyper-specific shelf and all the others just lumped together.
Okay, so let's give them some practical ways to fix this.
2 paths. Option A, you deepen the segmentation everywhere. If you're keeping the refugees category because that specificity is important, then you have to apply it to the others.
Meaning, instead of just music, you get more specific?
Precisely. You'd break it down. Ozzy Osbourne becomes rock icons. Roberta Flack becomes soul and jazz legends. Zubin Garg might be contemporary Asian composers. This shows the reader that granularity is a deliberate choice across the board.
And that justifies including people who might not be household names everywhere because they're prominent in their specific niche.
Right. The alternative is option B, consolidate. You merge that specific group back into a broader category, like public activism or humanitarian focus. But, and this is the key part, if that category is truly central to the piece's purpose, then you need a short intro, maybe just one paragraph, that explains why you're including these non-traditional figures alongside someone like Robert Redford.
You have to state your thesis, explain the unique structure.
You just have to make your editorial choices clear.
Okay, so once the tone and structure are sorted, that brings us to the final layer, the data itself, because even the best system falls apart if the basic info isn't there.
Absolutely. To elevate the document from a simple list to a useful historical or reference resource, critical data points are currently missing.
The whole premise, as I understand it, is that these are prominent people who died in 2025. But for a list like that, the complete absence of dates of death or even just basic job titles for some people, it really limits how useful it is.
It undermines the entire project. You're missing the proof. Even for someone everyone knows, like Robert Redford, not having a date of death in a 2025 compilation is, well, it's a problem. The reader has to stop, open a new tab, and check your work.
And you've lost them. And for names that are less globally known, like Michelle Trachtenberg or Zubin Garg, you need a little something to anchor them. Without that context, a reader might just think it's an error.
For sure. The suggestion here is really straightforward, but it's so important. You have to integrate the bare minimum data to make this list function. Dates and roles. It instantly makes the whole thing more robust.
This feels like the most direct fix. Low effort, high impact. How should they do it?
Just establish a uniform style. First, dates are mandatory. Add something clean, like month, day, 2025, next to every single name. Gene Hack, Charlie Kirk, all of them. That one change fulfills the promise of the title.
And the context for their roles, because sometimes a category isn't enough.
That's the other key piece. For anyone whose field is broad, or, whose name could be confusing, add a quick clarifier. So next to Bernie Parent, you add Hockey Hall of Famer.
Right.
And here's a perfect example. George Foreman is listed under music. Now, given the famous Baxter, that's confusing. You absolutely have to add something like a Sami singer-composer to clarify who you mean. Otherwise, the reader doubts the entire list.
Context is credibility. That's what it comes down to. The writer has done all the hard work of finding and organizing these names. This is just about adding the footnotes to make it pay off.
It just makes the work stronger. It removes ambiguity and lets that great organizational structure they built actually do its job.
Okay, so to wrap this all up for the listener, we've got 3 big areas. First, tighten up the consistency of the tone. Decide if it's a memorial or reference guide and really commit to it.
Right.
Second, define the editorial logic for the categories, especially with that one very granular group. Either make everything that specific or broaden it out and explain your choices. And finally, enhance the data. Add the essential context, dates of death, and specific roles for everyone. It makes the whole thing verifiable and so much more useful.
These changes will really transform this from a raw list into a powerful, impactful document. Just focus on unifying that voice and making your structural choices consistent. We'd love to see how you develop this further.